This program is made possible by Rosse Auto Air Conditioning Repairs and Parts for all makes of vehicles. Located at number 181 Manahambre Road, Princestown. Telephone number 744-1480.
सब गीत गाओ उस प्रभु के धन्यवाद. We're giving thanks to God. Today, all of us are joining together in our hearts and we're saying thanks to God. God has given us long life enough to see one more Shri Raam Navami in our lives. आज मिल सब गीत गाओ उस प्रभु के धन्यवाद. जिसका यश नित गाते हैं गंधर्व गुणी जन धन्यवाद. शादियों में जलसयों में यज्ञ और उत्सव के आज मीठे स्वर से चाहिए करें नारी नर सब धन्यवाद. When we gather in weddings, शादियों में जलसयों में, when we gather in fairs, यज्ञ और उत्सव के याद, when we gather in moments of yajna and festivals, मीठे स्वर से, with a sweet voice, मीठे स्वर से चाहिए करें all human beings, नारी नर सब धन्यवाद. Everybody should say thanks to God. Om Vishwani Deva Savitar Duritani Parasuva Yad Bhadram Tanna Asuvam. Om Agne Naya Supatha Raye Asman Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vidwan Yuyodhyasmad Juhuranameno Bhuyishtante Namauktim Vidhema. Om Bhur Bhuvah Swaham Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Om Sato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste everybody. It is now 7 o'clock on the dot and we have 65 people with us. By my understanding, we should have some more later coming in. Some people struggling somewhat late, but they're going to be here. And we begin by saying, Kaho ik baar hai mitro. All of you friends, say Sanatan Dharma ki jai ho. Kaho ek baar hai mitro, Vedic Dharma ki jai ho. This Vedic Dharma that is Sanatana, eternal, timeless, doesn't have a beginning, doesn't have an end. We say Jai Ho, we say glory and homage and veneration and victory unto such a dharma. Sanatana Dharma ki Jai Ho, Are Vedic Dharma ki Jai Ho. Vedic Dharma ki Jai Ho, Are Arya Samaj ki Jai Ho. Kaho ek baar हे मित्रों, सनातन धर्म की जय हो, वैदिक धर्म की जय हो, आर्य समाज की जय हो. We are gathered here to observe what you and I call Shri Ram Navami, the birthday of Shri Ram. Today is in Navami, the 9th day and night of this month, of this Chaitra month, and we're celebrating Shri Ram's birthday. And we are asking ourselves two questions which we will seek to answer in the body of today's pravachan, and that is, what is it about Shri Ram that we bring into focus? What good did he do? And if at all, did he do any bad? And of course, the answer is no, he did nothing bad. So if he did nothing bad, what good did he do that we should remember him for, so that we can celebrate his birthday? And also, a flip side of the question, why should we offer honor and veneration and reverence to Sri Ram in today's day? And I try to answer this question from three perspectives. I will look at his birthplace, and I'll tell you why. If you come from a place where everybody smokes intoxicants like marijuana and cocaine and crack and all of that, and they drink alcohol, and they curse all night, and they stone people's houses, and they vandalize people's property, and if you are from that place, you know what they will say? It's possible that Satish is also a smoker, Satish is also a drinker, Satish is also a vandalizer, Satish is also a bandit. Why? Because he was born in such a place, and he has come from such a place. Well, in celebrating Shri Ram's birth date, we will look at the place called Ayodhya where he was born. And then I'll tell you one thing more. We will look at who his father was. Who is Satish's father? Pandit Hardev Gopi. Oh, that man was dedicated to Arya Samaj and Sanatan Dharma. And that man used to love to preach Vedas and Ramcharitmanas. Oh, that must be a good man. I wonder if Satish is following in the footsteps of his father. We will look at his father, and then we will look at his mother. This is, I'm giving you the skeleton of the pravachan today, so you can look forward for something substantial. And then we will look at his character that was certified by two saints, and I will call them their name later on. So let's go back. We will look in offering Sri Ram, if I'm to use that term, birthday greetings. In trying to think of the good that we can focus on relative to Sri Ram, let's look at his birthplace, and it was called Ayodhya. And I'll tell you one thing, means without. Means without. And Yod comes from Yud, means fighting. The place that has no fighting. Means without, and Yud, Ayodhya, comes from Yud, to fight. Where siblings don't fight, where parents and children don't fight, where husband and wife don't fight, where neighbor and neighbor don't fight. Such was the city called Ayodhya, where Sri Ram was born. And right away you can form in your mind, well, what kind of character Sri Ram represented in the Ramcharitmanas and in Valmiki Ramayana. We're getting there. So let's go. What kind of people lived in Ayodhya? And today I went into the Valmiki Ramayana and I pulled out a few portions of sentences that throw light on Ayodhya. One is Naratushta Swadhana. Dhana means wealth. Swa means their own. Tushta means satisfied. Nara means people. The people of Ayodhya were satisfied with their own wealth. And that being so, they didn't covet the wealth of their neighbors. That's the first thing. Na nastika. None among them was an atheist. And an atheist is a person who refuses to believe in God, who refuses to believe in his own soul, who refuses to believe in good karmas that will impact on whether you're bound or liberated, who refuses to believe in something called moksha and liberation, all those things, who refuses to believe in the wisdom of God as found in Vedas and other texts. Such people who refuse to believe those things, they are called Gnostics. So in Ayodhya, na Gnostika, there were no Gnostics. Na Amrishta Bhoji. Amrishta means spoilt. Food that smelled of being slaughtered, or what you and I call stale. Na Amrishta Bhoji. Nobody ate any unclean food, whether meat food or even vegetable food that is there for 4 days not being touched. Nobody ate such kind of food. Nana hitagnihi. Everybody got up in the morning and kindled the fire and made Om Agnaye Somaya Prajapataye and Indraya Swaha offerings. Nataskara. Nobody was a thief because everybody had enough. Once when I first came from India and I was coming to Canada for the first time, my brother, his daughter left her bicycle, little baby left her bicycle out in the front yard, and he didn't have a fence and a gate. And I said, Da, why don't you take the bicycle in the garage? He said, why? He knew why I was saying that. He said, why? I said, isn't it possible that somebody can steal it? He said, Sat, nobody in this town of Brampton in those days, this is about 30 to 40 years, nobody steals anybody's bicycle. I said, but how is that so? If I were to leave a bicycle in Guyana outside and after 1 hour I were to go out, I would not see the bicycle. He said, Sat, every home can afford a bicycle and every home has a bicycle for their child. What would they do with 2 and 3? So they wouldn't take yours. And so we are saying in Ayodhya, na taskara. Nobody stole. Na kshudra. Nobody was petty-minded and narrow-minded. Kshudra means small-minded. Their mentality was not low. Swakarma, Nirata, Brahmana. All the Brahmana scholars were devoted to their tasks of studying and researching and teaching and exploring wisdom. Swakarma Nirata. Nirata means engaged, devoted. Brahmana, scholar. All the scholars were dedicated and engaged in their set allotted tasks of reading, studying, researching, and teaching. Nadina. Nobody was miserable. And there are many more. I just pulled out some. Na kshipta chitta. Nobody was distracted in mind. Everybody was one-pointed and focused. Na asit, there was not. Na asit, there was not. Pure, locative case in the city. In the city there was not. What? Mrishavadi. There was no falsifier. Nobody lied. Nobody told an untruth. Oh my God. Is this how the people of Ayodhya lived? And if Sri Ram was born there, oh my goodness, Sri Ram must have possessed a tremendous character steeped in rectitude. Well, we'll find out. Na paradara ratihi. Nobody had an affair with somebody else's spouse. Paradara, the spouse of another person. Na paradara ratihi. Nobody was involved in illicit extramarital relationships. Videsha jnata. These people in Ayodhya were well known in foreign lands. The way people in India want to come to the United States, people from the poor Hispanic countries, Spanish-speaking countries, they're lined up at the Mexican border because they heard about the United States and Canada and England and France and all those affluent countries. And they want to come to those countries because the people living in these affluent countries are very well known abroad. And that is how the Ayodhya people were also known abroad, for the high standard of cultural behavior, religious behavior, spiritual behavior, psychological behavior, mental behavior. They had emotional balance. They were well known, and they had enough wealth. They were well known. They were recognized. They were famous. And Niti, I can't pull any more. I just took out some. Niti, Shastra, Vishesha, Jim. They were specialists in political science. They knew the power of selecting a wonderful, focused king. And when they selected a king, they followed the king, and they followed the laws for the city made by the king and his state council. That was a place where Sri Ram was born. You want to find out somebody's character? One of the contributing factors to character is the place where you're born. Of course, it doesn't mean if there's everything negative, you might not be a distinct child with distinct sanskaras, and it's not impossible that you may not be different. You may be different, but by and large, much of your character is molded by the people living in that town, in that urbanization. Let's go now to his parents. Vedavit, Dasharath, his father's name is Dasharath. Sorry, 1 minute. His father's name was Dasharatha. He could have handled 10 chariots at one time. How is that possible? I don't know, but this is the meaning they give. But and by the way, later on you'll see Goswami Tulsidas saying that name came from the Vedas, but we're coming to that. But his father's name was Dasharatha. And two of his qualities, there are many more, but I couldn't pull more because I don't have all day for the lecture. Vedavit, Vit means a knower. He knew Vedas. Let us put it this way. He had wisdom. He knew he had access to wisdom. And Dirghadarshi, oh my God, he saw far into the future. He was very farsighted. And because he saw what was waiting for him at that end, he knew what choices and preferences to express at this end. He was Dirghadarshi. He was very far-sighted. And Goswami Tulsidas, he wrote a beautiful chaupai. What did he say? Avadhapuri Raghukula Manirau Veda Vidita Tehida Sarathana. Raam means king and Naum means name. Avadhapuri means Ayodhya. Raghukula, in the family of the Raghus, Sri Ram's family. Mani Rao, Mani means jewel. There was a jewel of a king. Veda Vidit, found in Vedas. Dasharatha now, his name, Dasharath, was found in the Vedas. And yes, I found it in Rig Veda. Ask me sometime to point it out to you. I'll give you the exact reference. Avadhapuri Raghukula Manirau Veda Vidita Tehida Sarathana. That was a peep into his father's character. And his mom, Kaushalyadi Nari Priya Saba Acharan Punit. Acharan Punit means pure behavior. They were Priya Nari. These three ladies, and white tree, we'll talk about that another time. But his mom, Kaushalya, was a loving lady, a Priya Nari, a loving lady. And her acharan, her conduct and behavior was Punit, very pure. Pati Anukul, she worked in sync with her husband. Of course, her husband didn't have outside affairs, and her husband didn't do drugs, and her husband didn't do alcohol, and her husband was not a wife beater and all of that. And so she worked in sync with her husband to plan the future goals of the family. Prema dridha. And she had very strong love for him. Pati anukula prema dridha. Haripada kamala vinita siya. पति रामचंद्र की जय, योगेश्वर कृष्ण चंद्र की जय, गुरुवर दयानंद की जय. Oh my God, Haripada Kamala Vinit. And every day she did her Gayatri, every day she did her Vishwani Deva, every day she did her Twameva Mata, and she offered veneration and adoration and devotion to the feet of God. Now we're moving. So that being his birthplace, he being the father, she being the mother, what kind of young man was this person that they call Ram? But before we go into the birth of Ram, let's find out how, many times you hear in Guyana that the story of the Ramayana was written 10,000 years before Sri Ram came. Not according to this. I don't want to use a strong, demeaning term by saying nonsense. That's too demeaning. That's too rough. That's too abrasive. Let's not use that kind of language. But let's give the evidence. When was this story written? And you will tell me yourself. But this is what happened. Valmiki was a rishi and Narad was a rishi. Here is his name Valmiki. I will underline it. And here is this Narad. I will underline it. The two rishis are talking. And Valmiki, they're discussing Valmiki. The Valmiki Ramayana is talking about Valmiki. And it says, Tapaha swadhyaya niratam tapasvi vagvidambaram naradam paripapracha Valmikir munipungavam. Look at this. Tapasvi. Oh, Valmiki practiced very profound austerities. Here it is. Valmiki practiced profound austerities. And one day, Paripapracha, he posed a question to Narada. And what was Narada? He was Muni Pungava. He was he was chief among the Munis. He was eminent among the saints. And not only that, Tapaha Swadhyaya Nirata, he was devoted to discipline and study. Nirata, he was devoted to Tapaha and Swadhyaya. He was dedicated to Tapa, austerity, and Swadhyaya, study. He studied and he researched and he studied and he researched and he studied and he researched. And he ended up being Vagavidam Varam. He was foremost amongst eloquent people. He spoke well. He spoke well. He wasn't only sweet, but there was substance to what he said. And those were some of his qualities. And it is saying, Paripaparcha, Paripapracha. He asked Narad, Valmiki asked such a Muni like Valmiki asked such a Muli of stature as Narada. He asked him a question. What was that question? Konvasmin sampratam loke. Who? Sampratam, now. Look at this. When was the story written? You answer the question. But listen to this first. Who, Valmiki asked, who, asmin loke, in this world, sampratam, right now, in these current times, who is Gunavan, Viryavan, who is filled with virtue and filled with power, who is Dharmajya, noble-minded, who is Kritajya, grateful, who is Satyavakya, who is truthful, and who is Dridha Vrata, who is firm in resolve. I'm missing out the word grateful here. He's asking, tell me, give me the name of somebody living right now who is filled with virtue and power, who is noble-minded, who is grateful, who, meaning not ungrateful, who is truthful and firm in resolve. Not only that, charitrena yukta, who is of blameless character. Charitra means character. Who is of blameless character, who is sarva bhuta hita, who is filled with good thoughts in his heart for all human beings, who desires the development and progress of all human beings. Sarva means all, not only of Brahmins, not only of Kshatriyas, not only of Vaishyas, not only of Shudras, not only of black people, not only of white people, not only of Indian people, not only of Jewish people, not only of any one segment of humanity. Sarva Bhuta Hrita, not only of humans, but also of animals. He has the good of all in his heart. Name me such a person now in these current times in this world. And also, not only that, this person I want you to tell me about wouldn't have all the good qualities on the outside, but he would also have some good qualities on the outside, meaning Priya Darshana, somebody of a handsome appearance, that you want to look at this person. Someone of handsome appearance. Jita Krodha, somebody who has conquered his anger. Anasuyaka, somebody who has risen above malice and fault finding. And there's much more, but I couldn't take more out from the Valmiki Ramayana. And then he ended up, after he gave a list of all the qualities of a person whose name he was looking for and where he was living. He made a statement. A concluding statement, Etat ichhami aham shrotum. Aham ichhami, I want. Shrotum, to listen, to hear. Etat, this. I want to hear the answer to this question. Maharshi, or you Maharshi, tvam samartha asi. You are capable, jnatum, to know, evam vidham naram, such a human being. You are the one, O Maharshi Narada, because you keep going here, there, and everywhere in your aerial car. You travel around, and you would know such a person. And look at what Narad Muni says. The Valmiki Ramayana said, Prahrishtaha. He was greatly delighted. Narad was greatly delighted, and abravit, past tense, he said, Vakyam, this sentence, he made a statement. Greatly delighted, Narada made the following statement. What did he say? Shruyatam, listen. Shruyatam bahavo durlabhaschaiva ye tvaya kirtita gunaha. Bahavaha gunaha, the many qualities, durlabhaha, which are rare. You wouldn't find those qualities all over the place, and not in every town would you find such qualities. Durlabhaha, they are rare gunaha qualities. Tvaya kirtita, mentioned by you. Tairyuktaha naraha, I will tell you the name of the man endowed with such qualities. And now he's making a statement. Ikshvaku Vansha Prabhavaha, born in the Ikshvaku dynasty, born in the family of King Ikshvaku of ancient times. Ramo Ikshvaku Vansha Prabhavaha, Ramo Nama Janaishrutaha. And people know this young man born in the dynasty of Ikshvaku. They know him by the name of Ram. And you know what? Veda Vedanga Tattvajna. He knows all the secrets of the Vedas and the auxiliary sciences. By that we mean grammar and etymology and prosody and ritual and phonetics and all. He knows them all. He knows Jyotish, astronomy. He knows all these auxiliary sciences. And they're called Vedanga. Veda Vedanga Tattvajna. Sarva Shastrartha Tattvajna, and the other Shastras like Aranyakas and Brahmanas, he knows them. Aryaha, he's an Arya. Aryaha, he's an Arya. Sarva Samaschaiva, and he treats everybody equally. He doesn't show favoritism and partisanship. Kshamaya, Prithivi Samaha. And he's comparable to the earth in patience and virtue and forbearance. How was he born? Why are you and I celebrating Ram Navami? What quality, what ideals can we extract from his life that you and I can benefit and execute those qualities, apply those qualities when we have our next grandchild? You see, it's not only a question of waving the lights and offering bananas and doing havan, whether you're Samaji or Sanatani. That's one thing. That's not bad. I'm not here to criticize that. I'm saying now in these modern times, we need to go one step further. Watch, listen. Sringi Rishi Vasishtha Bolava Putra Kama Subhajagya Karava. Dasharath wasn't getting children. And he spoke to Kula Guru Vasishtha Muni. And he spoke to Arya Sumantri, his prime minister. And they sent for Shringi Rishi from the forest. He was an accomplished genetician. He knew the science of genetics. He knew the science of procreation. He could have given you herbal mixtures and potions to correct certain flaws in your physiology and your psychological chemistry, your physical chemistry, physiological chemistry. And he could have performed the putreshti, the yajna to have a child. He could have performed it with certain powers inherent in the mantras. And that's what he did. Sringi Rishi Vasishtha Bolava Putra Kam Subhajagya Karava. Subhajagya, an auspicious yajna Karava. He had them make the offerings. Ehi Bidhi Garbha Sahit Sabanari. And through this procedure, through this methodology, all the three ladies conceived. Garbha Sahit, they conceived. Bhai Hriday Harashita Sukhabhari. And because they weren't getting children for such a long time, when they knew that they came to be expecting, their hearts were filled with joy. And after a given time, when the Punsavan and Simantoni and the two intervening sanskaras between conception and birth, the two intervening sanskaras were performed. Punsavan, Simantonian, which I'm not mentioning because I have little time, limited time. Oh, the children were born. Nandi Mukha Saradha Kari Jat Karam Sabakin. And they did the Jat Karma Sanskar, the birth ceremonies, in which they were going to take a piece of gold, which you will learn in the psychology of Yajna Sanskar course. Take a piece of gold, dip it in honey, and write Om. But let me pause for a moment. Gold, honey, and Om. Golden character, sweet character, and divinely centered character. Gold, honey, and Om. Golden, the highest among all the metals. Gold, honey, sweet. Golden, sweet, and Om centered. And they wrote Om on the lips of the child. Nandi Mukha Saradha Kari Jat Karam Sabakin. When the time came to give the children names, on the 11th day, just around that time, if Dashrath had wanted, remember his name came from Vedas, Veda Vidita